The words burned into my retinas like acid as I stared at my phone screen. I was unable to look away. "And Cameron, that ungrateful little freeloader," my mother's voice slurred from the video. Her wine glass tilted precariously in her manicured hand. "She barely gives us anything," she continued. My relatives crowded around our family dining table nodded in approval. My father's face appeared next to her. It was flushed with alcohol and self-righteousness. "We're doing just fine thanks to our Lily," he declared. He pounded the table for emphasis. "She's the one keeping that fancy restaurant afloat. Cameron just rides on her coattails." I felt the coffee mug slip from my fingers. It shattered against my kitchen floor. Hot liquid splashed across my bare feet. But I didn't feel the burn. I couldn't feel anything except the sickening hollowness spreading through my chest. These were the same parents whose mortgage I'd been paying for the past year. These were the same parents whose home renovation I'd funded entirely. These were the same parents who'd finally seemed proud of me after years of invisibility. My thumb hovered over the screen. The urge to throw my phone against the wall was nearly overwhelming. Instead, I hit pause. I watched a single tear splash onto the screen, distorting my mother's sneering face. How had it come to this? I was always Cameron, the shadow sister. I was the quiet one. I was the forgettable one. My childhood home was a stage. My sister Lily was the star that everyone orbited around. I can still smell the charcoal and sizzling meat from our frequent backyard gatherings. I can hear the ice clinking in glasses as my mother ensured everyone was comfortable and entertained. "Lily, sweetie." Aunt Marge would inevitably call out. Her voice sliced through the chatter of family gatherings. "Why don't you give us a little song?" And just like that, all eyes would turn to my sister. Lily would hop onto a chair. Her golden curls bounced in the sunlight. A mischievous glint was in her eye. She'd clear her throat dramatically. And then, magic. "My heart will go on," she'd warble. She was doing her best Celine Dion impression. A memory flickers. I was 5. I tried to join in. Dad gently steered me away. "Let your sister have her moment, Cam." His words were soft but firm. His eyes never left Lily. The adults would go wild. They clapped and cheered like they were at a real concert. Mom and Dad would beam with pride. Dad often wiped away a tear. Meanwhile, I'd be off to the side. I tried to blend in with the bushes. I learned later, much later, that Dad had grown up starved for attention in a house of 6 brothers. He was the middle child, always overlooked. His childhood bedroom had been a converted closet. His clothes were perpetually hand-me-downs. "A daughter who shines," he once murmured, watching Lily perform at her high school talent show. "Is everything I never had." I pretended not to hear him. But the words embedded themselves into my heart like splinters. School became my sanctuary. While I wasn't exactly Miss Popularity, I found my groove in the classroom. I wasn't content to just sit there and let the lessons wash over me. No, I was determined to understand every single thing the teachers said. "Mrs. Thompson," I'd say after class, my voice quiet but steady. "Could you explain that bit about mitosis again? I didn't quite get it." She'd smile, obviously pleased by my interest. "Of course, Cameron. Why don't we go over it together?" If a teacher couldn't spare the time, I'd ask for book recommendations. Soon, my backpack was always bulging with extra reading material. I'd stay up late, poring over those books. I was determined to master every subject. I remember the soft glow of my desk lamp. The house was quiet except for distant laughter from my parents' bedroom as they looked through Lily's latest performance photos. The bitter taste of instant coffee, my secret weapon against sleep, lingered on my tongue. All that hard work paid off. By the time I hit high school, I was top of my class. For once in my life, I was the best at something. I even made a few friends. Other bookworms who didn't mind my quiet ways. As graduation approached, our house became Lily Central. Mom was constantly helping her put together her portfolio for the advertising and PR program at some fancy college. "Oh honey, this campaign idea is perfect," Mom would gush, looking at Lily's work. "You're so talented." I'd roll my eyes and retreat to my room. I buried myself in my studies. But one night, during yet another family dinner devoted to Lily's college plans, something in me snapped. "I'm going to college too," I blurted out. "I want to study management." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, to my shock and hurt, they all burst out laughing. "Oh sweetie," Mom said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "We don't have money for that. You'll need to get a job after graduation. You're just not as gifted as your sister." The word gifted landed like a slap. How many times had I heard it applied to Lily? Hundreds? Thousands? Each time, it defined what I was not. I felt like I'd been struck. But I'm the top student in my class," I stammered. My face was burning with anger and embarrassment. "I get straight A's." I stormed up to my room and came back with my report card. I slammed it on the table. They all leaned in to look. Their eyes widened in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad muttered, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years," I spat. "Not that any of you ever noticed." Mom, at least, had the decency to look ashamed. "Cameron, we had no idea." But Dad cut her off. "Look, it doesn't change anything. We've spent all our savings on Lily's education. There's nothing left for you, Cameron. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You'll go to work at my cousin Frank's restaurant after graduation." Mom came to my room later that night. She perched awkwardly on the edge of my bed. "You have to understand," she whispered. Her eyes darted to the door as if afraid Dad might hear. "Your father, he grew up with nothing. He's terrified of returning to that. Lily's talent seems like a sure thing to him. A guaranteed return on investment." She twisted her wedding ring nervously. This was a habit from her own childhood of financial insecurity. "His parents lost everything in the recession of the '80s, she continued. He was 15 when they had to sell their house. He never forgot that shame." I wanted to sympathize. But my own hurt was too raw. "And what am I?" I asked. "A bad investment?" She left without answering. I turned and ran, ignoring their calls. I sprinted up the stairs into my room. I slammed the door so hard the walls shook. As I collapsed onto my bed, sobs racking my body, I felt something inside me harden. Fine, I thought. My hands clenched into fists. If they won't help me, I'll find another way. I'll show them all what Cameron can do. The next few months were a blur. Lily headed off to college. Her departure was marked by tearful goodbyes and proud parental embraces. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor. I was determined to graduate at the top of my class. During this time, I found myself spending more and more time with Great Aunt Maggie. Her small, cozy house became my refuge from the tension at home. The scent of her house, cinnamon and old books, became the smell of safety to me. Her creaky porch swing, where we'd sit for hours discussing everything and nothing, became more home than my actual home ever was. One afternoon, as we sat in her sunlit kitchen sipping tea, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, Cameron," she said. Her kind eyes were fixed on me. "What are your plans after graduation?" I stared into my teacup, fighting back tears. I I don't know, Aunt Maggie. Mom and Dad won't help me with college. They say there's no money left after paying for Lily's education. Maggie was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Cameron, dear, I've got some savings. I'd like to give them to you for college. You're smart as a whip. And I'll be damned if I let that brain of yours go to waste. The reality of her words hit me like a tidal wave. I burst into tears. I was overwhelmed by her generosity and the sudden realization that my dreams weren't dead after all. Thank you, I sobbed, throwing my arms around her. Thank you so much, Aunt Maggie. The months flew by. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, diploma in hand. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming at me. My parents were there too, looking proud but uncomfortable. That evening, as I pored over college brochures, Mom walked in. Cameron, honey, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. Your father's cousin Frank called. He's got a waitressing job for you at his restaurant. Isn't that exciting? I took a deep breath. Actually, Mom, I won't be needing that job. I'm going to college. Dad appeared in the doorway, frowning. And how exactly do you plan to pay for that? Aunt Maggie is helping me, I said. My chin was held high. She's giving me her savings for tuition. The shocked silence that followed was almost comical. Then, to my disbelief, Dad's face turned red with anger. Absolutely not, he bellowed. If Maggie's got money to spare, it should go to Lily. She needs a car for her job in advertising after she graduates next year. I saw it then. The naked fear in his eyes. The terror that somehow, someone in the family might rise above their station. That I might succeed where he had failed. It wasn't just about Lily being the favorite. It was about maintaining the order he understood. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? I spat. This is my chance to get an education, to make something of myself. Don't be selfish, Cameron, Mom chimed in. Your sister needs that money more than you do. No, I said. My voice was shaking but firm. This is my money now. And I'm using it for college. End of discussion. From that moment on, life at home became unbearable. My parents either ignored me completely or snapped at me over the smallest things. The tension was suffocating. After a particularly nasty argument, I called Aunt Maggie in tears and told her everything. Pack your bags, sweetheart, she said without hesitation. You're moving in with me. The next day, I stuffed everything I owned into a cab and drove away. I watched my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. The summer flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Before I knew it, I was stepping onto the campus of State University. Thanks to my stellar grades and Aunt Maggie's generosity, I'd gotten into the management program I'd always dreamed of. That first morning on campus remains crystallized in my memory. The crisp autumn air. The weight of new textbooks in my backpack. The sense of possibility stretching before me like an unexplored country. For the first time, I felt the absence of comparison. No one here knew Lily. No one measured me against her. I was just Cameron, full of potential. My first day of classes, I felt like I was floating on air. As I sat in my introduction to business lecture, drinking in every word, I couldn't help but think, I made it. I'm really here. The years flew by in a blur of lectures, exams, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation. My hard-earned management degree was clutched tightly in my hand. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming at me. Tears of pride were in her eyes. Thanks to my top grades and glowing recommendations from my professors, I landed a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork. It was one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city. The salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of. For the first time in my life, I felt truly successful. One day, as I was preparing for the dinner rush, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, surprised to see my mother's name on the screen. We hadn't spoken in years. Cameron, her voice was hesitant. We were hoping you might come over to talk. After a long pause, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home. My hand hovered over the doorbell. Before I could press it, the door swung open. Cameron. My mother pulled me into a tight hug. Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you. Inside, I found my father, Lily, and a toddler I assumed was my niece. The atmosphere was tense but not hostile, like I'd feared. You look good, kiddo, Dad said. His voice was gruff but warm. We hear you're doing well for yourself. I nodded, still wary. I am. I'm a manager at the Gilded Fork now. Their eyes widened at the name of the restaurant. Mom cleared her throat. That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you. Over the next hour, they apologized for how they treated me. They admitted they'd been wrong to dismiss my potential. Then came the real reason for the reunion. Cameron, Mom said, glancing at Lily. We were hoping. Well, we were wondering if you might be able to help Lily get a job at your restaurant. I looked at my sister. She was bouncing her daughter on her knee. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll see what I can do, I said finally. No promises, but I'll ask. True to my word, I spoke to Mr. Reeves, the restaurant owner, about Lily. To my surprise, he agreed to give her a shot as an administrator. As the year drew to a close, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. I went in nervous. I wondered if the family drama had somehow affected my work performance. Instead, he smiled broadly and said, Cameron, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group. I stood there, shocked into silence. Finally, I managed to stammer out, Are you sure? He nodded. His eyes were twinkling. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You've earned this, Cameron. You're the reason this business has flourished. It's time you took the reins. And now, here I was, staring at a Facebook video that had shattered everything I thought I'd rebuilt with my family. I picked up my phone and dialed Aunt Maggie's number. Oh, Cameron, dear, she said when she answered. Her voice was full of sympathy. I take it you've seen the video?
Yeah.
I choked. My voice was raw from crying. I can't believe it, Aunt Maggie. How could they? I could hear the anger in her voice as she replied. They've always been like this, Cameron. You just haven't been around to see it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth. I thought of all the nights I'd lain awake. I calculated how much I could spare from my paycheck to help them. The pride I'd felt when I could solve their problems. The childish hope that maybe, finally, they'd see me as worthy. How naive I'd been. We talked for hours. Aunt Maggie comforted me as I cycled through shock, anger, and grief. As night fell, I made a decision. I'm cutting them off, I told Aunt Maggie. My voice was firm despite the pain in my heart. No more money, no more help. They made their bed. Now they can lie in it. The sun streams through the bay windows of Aunt Maggie's. Now our kitchen as I pour us both a cup of coffee. The contractors called, I tell her. I slide a mug across the counter. They can start on the sunroom addition next week. She beams at me. Her weathered hands cup the warm mug. This old house won't know what hit it, she chuckles. My phone buzzes. Another text from my mother. I don't even read it anymore. After weeks of ignored messages, their tone had shifted from apologetic to entitled to outright hostile. The last one I opened, from my father, still stings, after everything we've done for you. I'd laughed bitterly at that. Yes, after everything they'd done. Overlooking me, dismissing me, taking advantage of me. Lily, surprisingly, had maintained her professional demeanor at work. I'm not taking sides, she'd told me. It's between you and them. I'd nodded, appreciating her neutrality. Even if part of me wished she'd stand up for me. But I understood. She had her daughter to think about. Mr. Reeves. Now officially retired. Calls occasionally to check on how the restaurant group is doing under my leadership. You're making me proud, Cameron, he always says. Those words mean more to me than any praise from my parents ever did. As Aunt Maggie and I sit in comfortable silence, sipping our coffee and watching the birds at the feeder, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. The little girl who'd been overlooked and underestimated has grown into a woman who surpassed everyone's expectations. Including her own. And that's enough. That's more than enough.